Okay, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Once again, I have with me Logan. Logan, how you doing?
Doing great, Jamie. How are you, man?
Good.
Feeling better?
Yeah, good. Getting over whatever illness I had. I described it to you. It's like my insides were coming out through my mouth, and it wasn't
Yeah.
very pleasant. But it's over and done with now. It just feels a bit like a cold. But there's been a lot of gaming stuff happening over the past few weeks, and we should really get into it. And just want to say, people watching, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps the podcast and the channel out. We've got a lot of stuff to go over today, and we tend to do these rants sometimes on these podcasts. Well, it's mainly me because I'm always mad at Square Enix. And this week's no different. But you also want to have a rant about Square Enix as well, so we might as well start with you and what you want to talk about.
Oh, it's a long story, but basically, it may have been a mistranslation, but this quote that came from an exec at Square kind of just rubbed me the wrong way a little bit. Kind of just about how their games, like if they look to Western companies for inspiration or try to make games in the vein of Western style games, that their quality and overall brand would suffer. And I mean, on one hand, I can understand that if it's phrased in a certain way, like, hey, we stick to our bread and butter, we do what we're good at, and if we try to stray too far from that, we won't do as well. But the way it was phrased and Square's overall attitude about things in general, especially their treatment of the Xbox and Western platforms, just I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me as a little culturally elitist kind of, and just about how like Western games aren't near as premier as our this or this. I'm like, dude, have you seen Elden Ring? Do you see the numbers that game is putting out? Like, I just beat it after putting almost 200 hours in. The game's masterpiece, phenomenal, and that takes a ton of inspiration from Western games in its design, story, lore, a bunch of stuff. Obviously, it's Japanese made, and there's obvious Japanese influence and themes and everything in it and design, but it also has a lot of Western elements to it as well. And it's considered one of the best games ever made, just frankly. So the fact that you would have almost the audacity to say something like that when you have living proof that just came out a few months ago to the contrary, I don't know. It felt like even more of a square being a square, so to speak.
Yeah, Square Enix has a habit of just saying and doing silly stuff. Like it's almost every other week. It's like they have a mandate to do something stupid, And that was what they said. Like oh, they shouldn't chase like what Western devs do. It's like I think it's okay for them to borrow from each other. It's like there's an RPG that came out in February called Edge of Eternity. That was a French-made game, and it's a JRPG. It's like people liked it, and it's like I think it's okay for like different regions to like experiment with each other when it comes to like game design. And like you were saying, Elden Ring is we've got Xbot in chat. Hey man, um, like Elden Ring's massively successful. Even on Xbox, like millions of copies sold, and it's a Japanese game. It has lots of Western design elements, and like that game's selling. Like that game sold 12 million copies in 3 weeks, and after like the game first came out, and I was telling people about it, like because I did the tech test last year for the game, and I would tell people, like, if you aren't into Souls games, don't get this. And, I have to say, what, a month plus later, I've changed my mind. Even if people don't like Souls games, they should probably play this. Like, it's amazing. It's literally amazing. And, Square Enix should look at that. I think Elden Ring is going to be one of those monumental shifts for like game publishers, because remember when Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order came out, this single player Star Wars game that people really loved, and that made EA pretty much crap the bed and realize, oh wait, we can make money off single player games. And that's why Mass Effect's going back to Unreal Engine, and basically developers have more freedom now because we have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to thank. And I think Elden Ring is going to do the same thing. Like, I would be shocked if Square Enix like if they aren't paying attention to what people are talking about with Elden Ring, because even though you can play in co-op and do PvP, like that's a very popular game and it's Japanese made and it's got a lot of Western themes in it. And I don't know, man. I'm just used to Square Enix messing up and saying stupid stuff on the weekly. Like that, Square Enix is the company that spent over $100 million marketing Tomb Raider. Like that just blows my mind to this day. It's like we don't need that much advertising for a household name like Lara Croft. Like, stop it. Stop doing stupid things. And carrying on with the whole Square Enix thing, I've got some more dumb stuff to talk about. So, about a week and a half ago, Kingdom Hearts 4 was announced. Really cool trailer. Even though, the main dude, I forgot his name, doesn't wear clown shoes anymore. And a lot of people were like complaining about that. But, at the end of the trailer, there was no platforms mentioned. And as we've seen in the past, like Square Enix is all over the place with their Xbox support, right? Some Final Fantasy games come to Xbox. If the old games, they definitely do. If the new ones, well, we're still waiting on Final Fantasy VII Remake. And, we got Kingdom Hearts 3. That was the first title in the franchise on an Xbox console. And then we waited 2 years for the collection. Square Enix is very backwards with how they just do things in general. But they advertised for and it was announced in cool trailer, but like them not putting the platforms at the end of the trailer really made me think. Like that's one of few things, right? If Sony has some exclusivity for a game, it's plastered all over the world, right? They let people know, hey, this is only going to be on our platform. But at the same time, I'm wondering, like, why would Square Enix not tell us the platforms for Kingdom Hearts? Like, Kingdom Hearts is a huge IP, and it has a growing fan base on Xbox. And they didn't mention anything. Like, what's your whole thought on that?
Well, it could mean several things. It could be one that it's to be determined. Maybe they're, in negotiations currently for a potential money hat situation to where it could be PlayStation exclusive for a time. Or maybe they're waiting for some Xbox, Game Pass money to be tossed their way to have a day one in Game Pass kind of deal. Or maybe they just haven't fully committed yet because they don't know if they're going to have last gen and this gen, or if they're going to include Switch, or what they're going to do. But it is odd that they wouldn't just go ahead and confirm what platforms it is. So that makes me a little suspicious that it's going to be yet again another money hat for PlayStation. And speaking of the whole timed exclusivity goofiness, you saw the other day that we are officially getting, House of the Dead remake like Thursday this week. And so that had gone to PlayStation, or not PlayStation, excuse me, Nintendo. It had like a month or so exclusivity or something. I mean, like, really, are we seriously just tossing a bag of money for a month early access for games now? Is that really a thing we're going to be doing going forward?
Yeah, I mean, now that you mention it, I think it was Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 remastered. Like that was a month exclusive to PlayStation 4. So there's been this precedent for developers doing this. Like, and you've got to wonder, like, what's the incentive for a month? Like, if a game is like a few years, like that makes people think, okay, I need this platform for this game now if they really want it. But if it's a month, it's like, why not just wait? Like a month wait for a game is nothing, It is strange, the House of the Dead thing. Maybe it's just like, maybe they got the port out, first for the Switch. Yeah, there could be a ton of different reasons for that stuff, but it is weird. I do think this, though. I think over the next few years, we are going to see less timed exclusives because, Sony's getting into the whole streaming thing now, or should I say the live service thing with their PlayStation Plus Premium Elite, Vector 5, whatever they call it. Their naming thing, by the way, for PlayStation Now Plus, whatever, terrible.
No, it's garbage.
Yeah, like the thing is, Game Pass, it's catchy, it's 2 words, Game Pass, right? But PlayStation Plus Elite, PlayStation Plus Premium, or Essential, it's like, calling one tier essential is basically saying the other tier isn't. Like they kind of crapping on their own tiers. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But I think when it comes to Sony getting into the subscription service seriously, and Microsoft, they clearly all in on the subscription stuff with Game Pass. I think we're going to see less timed exclusives. You're going to see Sony and Xbox kind of bid it out for what game is going to be on which platform via the service day one. Because if you look at like a Plague Tale Requiem, the first game's amazing, by the way, and it's also in Game Pass. Like a Plague Tale Requiem is launching in Game Pass this year, and it's going to be a big deal. And it's like that game probably can't launch in Sony service day one due to contractual reasons, and it's going to be the same for other games on PlayStation service. So it's like, I think there's going to be less incentive for developers to just put games on one platform a month early, or 2 months, or 6 months. Because if you can incentivize millions of people to subscribe to your service by getting these games day one, like, I think that's going to get more people on board than just, oh, we've got this game 6 months in advance. Because I'll be honest, I've seen PlayStation get certain games 6 months in advance, a few months in advance. I don't really care. At the end of the day, my backlog is ridiculous as it is. So if a game is a few months out, I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. And while we're talking about the whole subscription thing, I think a lot of people listening will notice this. Netflix had this drop in subscribers. And this is
wonder why.
Yeah, and people have been wondering when the whole Netflix story came out. I predicted within minutes someone will randomly link this to Game Pass, because people randomly dislike Game Pass for some reason. It's a subscription service that people like, but of course people like to say, well, this is going to happen to Game Pass, and it's like, I was subscribed to Netflix for like 8 years, and I unsubscribed in August 2021, and for a ton of reasons. Number one, they cancel shows way too early. Like, sometimes a show could be out for a few days and they'll cancel the second season. They did that with the series Jupiter Ascending. That was meant to be, Jupiter's Legacy. Like, that was going to be their big IP. They make films, TV shows, animated shows, and they didn't do anything with it. They made one season, cancelled it. And, the price hiking, like Netflix's price goes up sometimes twice a year, and they lock 4K content behind an extra paywall. But on Disney Plus, you get the 4K stuff at no additional charge. Like, in my opinion, Disney Plus is like a better service just for its price and what it offers. And people are sick of just Netflix in general. Like, how many price hikes have been in the US for Netflix in the past 2 years? 3, 4 maybe? And, I think, them coming out and saying, oh yeah, you can't share passwords with people, like, that's going to hurt a lot of people, but it's mainly going to hurt their bank account, because a lot of people share passwords for Netflix. I did, but it's not really like that with Game Pass. Game Pass, you have access to discounts for games in the store, discounts for DLC for those games in the store. And, when a game is going to leave Netflix, you can't buy it at discount, but on Game Pass you can. And I think people just see this whole Netflix situation and try to link it to Game Pass, because you've heard on podcasts, man, like, people love to concern troll Game Pass. Like, this whole Netflix thing has nothing to do with Game Pass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've noticed that concern trolling period has become a disturbing trend in the game discourse in general. Like, whenever something happens, there's always, oh, the concern about this or that, or, oh, I'm going to write an article saying how worried I am about this or that. And it's like, okay, there are legit times to be worried or concerned about something, but it seems like every day somebody's just trying to draw something out of a hat to be quote unquote worried about for clicks. But, yeah, in particular about Game Pass, like, I don't know. You would think after 5-something years, people could wrap their brain around the concept of Game Pass. But for some reason, the people who either play the games or the people who cover the games or both just seem to be slow to adapt to this idea of something different and new has ushered things forward. I remember, this might date me a little bit, but I remember, we went from standard television to HD. That was a huge leap. And people are like, HD, like, what is that? And then it's like, wow, this is a big deal. And then HD to 4K was a big jump. And now it's like, if I ever watch an old movie, like, I have to hook up a VHS to watch an old obscure movie or whatever, and then I just see the quality. I'm like, what on earth is this compared to 4K? It's like that for like Game Pass and these subscription services. It's a new way of doing things, and it's been around for a while. It's going to keep going and going to get stronger and stronger. And basically, you're just going to have to learn to accept it or just, get lost on it because it's just the way it's going right now. And it's really funny how people concern troll about it or are envious and jealous of it about like, "Oh, I pay for my games. I don't subscribe." I'm like, dude, the company gets your money either way. You're either paying them for a subscription a month or a year, or you're buying the game from the full out price immediately. Either way, they get your money. They don't care how they get it. So I don't know. It's just a weird dynamic.
Yeah, before I continue with the whole like Game Pass and Netflix thing, you were mentioning like hooking up a VHS and like realizing how bad it looks. Like some UK listeners might know what I'm talking about. There's a free subscription, well, a free video service in the UK called All 4, and they announced that they're going to have all 10 seasons of Smallville. It was a big deal, right? And I was like, oh, I can
That's
watch.
awesome.
Yeah, and bear in mind, free service. There are ads, but they announced, oh, it's going to be free. So I was like, right, I want to start watching Smallville again anyway. Save me from getting out my DVD box set. And I put it on, and I'm like, wow, 4 minutes of ads. This is killing me, And then the show starts, and it's like, it was 720p. And I was just, I can't do this. It felt like someone was taking sandpaper to my eyeballs. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Like as someone that likes higher resolutions now, and the DVD quality was better than the streaming quality of this. And I was like, okay, it might be free to watch, but I'm not putting up with 15 minutes of ads every hour. Like, I just can't do it. And, that's another thing people are getting mad at about Netflix. It's like, they're going to put ads on, although that's going to be a separate tier. But it's like, linking Game Pass to Netflix and their whole situation. It's like Matthew was saying in chat, like, Netflix never sticks to anything beyond a year. So it's like, and I've ranted about this on Twitter before. It's like Altered Carbon Season 1, right? This is why people shouldn't worry about Game Pass. Altered Carbon Season 1 had a ridiculous budget per episode. It was about $12 to $15 million. It had Blade Runner 2049 quality special effects. It was amazing, right? We had to wait 2 years for Season 2. Not only that, it's that they had a completely different team of writers. The setting was different, and it's like the lead character had changed, but that made sense for the story. But the story itself was terrible, and we waited 2 years, and that's the problem. I'm personally sick of Netflix's production cycle. 2 years in between seasons, really? Even before the pandemic, 2 years. That's ridiculous. I'm not putting up with that. How come every other production company on the planet can get out a season per year, but Netflix multiple years? Three years in between seasons of Stranger Things. No, I'm not doing that. People can't get invested in characters and stories when they have to wait years in between. That's not really a problem with Game Pass. With some games you're getting persistent content. Halo, which we'll talk about later. Like, Halo's going to continue to get content throughout the years, and it's like, this isn't a thing people have to worry about. And because of Game Pass, we're going to get more sequels to games that we get now. And I've also mentioned like the Halo TV series with this. Like, if it wasn't for these streaming services, we wouldn't be getting the productions that we're getting now. So, for instance, IGN put out this post yesterday on about the budget of these top, I should say, most expensive streaming shows, right? Bear in mind, Game of Thrones was the #1 most expensive TV show ever produced on standard television, and it was $15 million per episode. So that's a lot of money, right? That is unrealistic for shows to cost that much normally, right? Like 1 billion people watched Game of Thrones every week. But other shows, you can't do that. But like The Mandalorian, $15 million per episode. The Pacific, $20 million per episode. most of Marvel's Disney shows, $25 million per episode. And then you have Stranger Things, $30 million. Then you have Amazon's Lord of the Rings series, $57 million per episode.
That's obscene.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the thing is, with games, it's like, with all that monthly money going back into the service and the company, like, they can put out bigger budget and more higher quality content. And we're going to see this with games as well. You know, people were concerned when Game Pass came out, thinking, oh, the production cycles are going to get worse and the quality is going to get worse. It's like, no, just like television and streaming shows, the quality is going to go up. So we're going to see some of the biggest games launch in Game Pass, made by Microsoft. You're going to see that with Avowed, Starfield, Elder Scrolls. The list goes on. You know, and there's been reports today that Elder Scrolls, you know, it's going to be bigger than most people think. And we're going to see, like, remasters of, you know, certain Fallout games, which, that's a debate for another day. But I don't think people have to worry about this. And if we've seen, like, over the past year, the quality of Xbox games have been a lot higher than they were the few years beforehand. So I wouldn't worry about that. Like, that's a very strange thing for people to try. But the thing is, it's a negative thing. People can loop to Game Pass. Like, people are so scared of change. We were buying boxed copies for decades the exact same way. Yet books, TV, movies, music all went digital, all went streaming, and people are just terrified of video games being distributed in a different way. It's like, people were complaining during the 360 era that not all games were available digitally day one. And that changed with the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 generation. And then now, subscription services are a big way of, you know, getting content. Like Xbox was saying in chat, like, he saved so much money by being subscribed. And for me, it's the same deal. I've saved hundreds, if not thousands of pounds. And that money can go towards content that doesn't launch in the service. And we've seen by Microsoft, Ubisoft, and other companies, like, Xbox players tend to spend more money. And, well, that's why we spend more money. We have more money to spare because of services like Game Pass. So people need to just calm down and stop the concern troll. It's tiresome. Concern trolling really is. Anyway, we'll move on. So, Dead Space. Right. I need to talk about this because I love Dead Space and it's a franchise I really care about. You know,
Same.
A year ago, you know, EA came out and said, look, we are remaking the first Dead Space title. And it's a big deal. And, you know, as someone that loves Dead Space, if they're going to remake a 360 era game, and bear in mind, I do not think that 360 gen games need remakes. Like, the resolution enhancements and FPS boosts prove that those games still look good. But I'm a realist. I know that this is the only chance Dead Space has at returning. And with it being EA, I was a little bit, you know, concerned. Legitimately concerned, because when they announced that the game's going to be running on Frostbite, my eyes rolled into the back of my head. Like, I know,
bad vibes.
yeah. I mean, I'm going to break the glass for everyone that hasn't realized this. Everything in Frostbite looks like it's made from wet plastic. So next time anyone plays Battlefield or Battlefront, just look at the floor, a wall, or a rock. It looks like it's made out of wet plastic or paper mache. It's really noticeable once you really notice. But anyway, I digress. So anyway, they put out footage over the past few months in little dev cycles and stuff, and it looks good, I'll admit. You know, I'm someone that actively is up against, you know, Frostbite. I do not want that engine anywhere near Mass Effect ever again. But this is Dead Space, and it's a slow-paced game, and it looks good. But one of the things people complained about was the sounds. Like, the sound design in the remake, I'll admit, was pretty bad. And, you know, people voiced their concerns. I saw people on Twitter mention that they were actually being polite. And that's the thing. If someone's rude to you, they don't pay attention to you. But if you're polite, and there's a lot of people doing it the same way, developers listen. So anyway, they put out a tweet last week, and they put out maybe a minute or so of audio, along with gameplay. And it sounds exactly like the original now. And that's good. Like, did you see that clip at all?
Yeah, I did, and I think it just goes to show the value of feedback. Like, as long as you're respectful and, you know, kind, but, you know, you get your point across, it can really be helpful. You can say, look, this clearly does not match the original. I know this is a remake, but at least try to get close to it or have, you know, inspiration from it to where it makes sense if there's a deviation. And they took that to heart, and it's so much better now. So kudos to people for reaching out to them and, you know, being polite but getting the point across.
You know, and I think people should just do that more often. Like, if someone has a go at me on Twitter because of something I've said, I'll just mute them. I'll block them. But if they have a valid point or criticism, I'll listen. You know, I may roll my eyes and be annoyed behind the scenes, but I will actually listen. And just do that with games. Like, it's proven that developers will pay attention to you if you're just polite. Like, and I hate the fact that I have to say that, but we've seen the crap developers get over certain games and DLC or any announcements, and it's like people are just overreaction, you know, about everything. I know this isn't really about gaming, but the whole Elon Musk buying Twitter thing, like people are acting like the world's ended. It's like nothing changed. Nothing
Oh
changed.
man, that was hilarious, man.
Yeah, it's like we know what. We know who Elon Musk is, you know. He posts he was posting Elden Ring memes like a week ago. It's like he bought Twitter. He's a billionaire. There's nothing I can do about it. You know, I'm still using Twitter. And the thing is, I got Twitter for free. So, who's smarter? Huh? But, you know, like people were just concerned. People were, like, losing their mind overnight. It's like, literally, not a single thing has happened. Not a single thing has changed. And if Elon Musk is listening, give me my blue check mark. I've been on Twitter 10 years. I need it. I want it. Doesn't really matter, but it'd be cool to have. But, yeah, I think, you know, people should be, you know, voicing the concerns about the games and stuff, you know. Like, again, Dead Space, nobody expected that franchise to come back because would a single-player horror game make EA much money? Realistically, yes, but, like, you know, we've seen how they've treated certain franchises in the past. Like, remember Dead Space 2 had multiplayer. It wasn't that good, but it still had it. And that was during a generation where they just shoved multiplayer onto everything. Like, can you remember that during the Xbox 360 generation? Like, everything had to have a forced multiplayer mode. You know.
Yeah, I remember that's kind of what was the nail in the coffin for Dead Space 3. It was a really interesting co-op mode, but not everybody wanted that, and it kind of changed it from survival horror to more actiony if you played it co-op versus by yourself. And so then that kind of alienated some fans, and then basically they put it on ice until now. But yeah, I just hate it when developers feel the need to pigeonhole and shoehorn in some stuff because it's a current fad. Like NFTs, for example, we've gone ad nauseum on how much we hate those things, but just like that's the current fad, and people are trying to put them in games, and people are like we don't like them, and then developers like, guess what? We like them. It's a fad. We're gonna try it. People get mad. Developers go, oh, it didn't sell well. I wonder why. And then you know it repeats itself.
Yeah, so, you know, people just need to be vocal. That's pretty much it at the end of the day. And, you know, who knows? You know, if you think about it, that's how the reason we got Mass Effect Legendary Edition is because people were vocal. Like, people were clamoring for years wanting a remaster of those three games. Like, 50% of that was probably me, but, like, at the end of the day, there was a lot of people wanting, like, Mass Effect to come back, and, you know, Dead Space getting a good treatment with the remake. I reckon they will just remaster 2 and 3. Makes sense. But, like, if people want, like, these remakes or remasters, like, be vocal on Twitter. Like, they do listen. Again, Legendary Edition happened because people were vocal at the end of the day. Like, if you search on Twitter, like, Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster, 50% of the tweets are by me, but, like, a lot of people wanted it to happen. And it did, and it was fantastic. It's probably the best, like, remaster trilogy there is. Anyway, we'll move on. And, you know, speaking of NFTs, we're going to talk about Ubisoft in a bit, but I want to mention this because, you know, Ghost Recon Breakpoint hit its end of life. You know, it had troubled development, the game came out, it was lacking features, but over time they put out different updates, you know, quality of life features, and it's at a point now where it's actually really good. You know, you can change the settings in that game. You can play it, you know, as a looter shooter. You can play it as a single player kind of like action game. You can play it as a single player kind of survival game in a sense, and you know you can play it with an AI squad and pretty much do whatever you want, much like Wildlands. And honestly, I think it's a good game. People should really play it if they like stealth and stuff. Uh, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because they announced end of life and all this stuff, no more DLC or support. And the funny thing is that about 6 months ago, they start talking about NFTs, right? And I hate NFTs, like I really do. People have been against like DLC and microtransactions for years, but yet the second you say to them, you might make profit off this, they lose their mind. And if you look on Twitter, you just see these people with like NFT profile pictures, and I'm like, stop it, stop. So anyway, Ubisoft decided to put these in their games, and they started with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. And the funny thing is like a lot of those items, are kind of useless. Do you want a helmet with a number 1 on or a skull? It's like, that's yours. Congratulations, you own a digital receipt. That means nothing. Well, the funny thing is, it's like those items are locked to that game. So all these people that bought NFTs, and apparently there were maybe about 300 people buying these NFTs last time I checked. Well, they're worthless now. They're more worthless than they were worthless back when the game was active. It's like people legitimately think that they're going to carry forward this DLC or these items to different games when games use different engines, different source code, all the time. And it's like, it's kind of beautiful if you think about it. It's like people wasted their money thinking NFTs were going to make them money, and then the game pretty much gets shut down for support. It's like, it's beautiful in a way. It's like, that's karma. You're going to get it. Like, what's your thought on the whole, like, them shutting down the live service stuff on that?
Yeah, it's goofy, man. Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, my mic was acting up. Yeah, I think live service is interesting, especially in today's age. Especially with Halo, it's always in the news, it seems like. So what are your thoughts on season 2 of that?
Oh, you want to jump in Halo now? Okay, may as well. We've got tons of stuff to talk about. So, like, Halo's interesting because I was looking forward to it. The single player campaign I think's fantastic. I haven't really talked about my thoughts on Halo that much because every time you mention Halo online, you get this wrath of people that are just like overly negative about everything you say. If you like Halo 4, not allowed. And it's like people have to voice their opinion. Like, go to any post on Twitter that says Halo 4 or 5, you're going to immediately scroll down and see hate. Like, and that's why I don't talk about the franchise. I love Halo. I love Halo as much as Mass Effect. I just never talk about it. And, we've talked about how, like, Halo fans are a lot like Star Trek fans. They will complain no matter what. Like, Star Trek fans, and we've talked about Star Wars fans in the past. Like, Star Trek fans are very vocal. Like, they will complain about anything at any time. And it's like Halo fans complained about a Halo cookbook. Like, 343 didn't stop making updates and content for the game just to make this cookbook. Like, no. So anyway, when it came to the whole Season 2 stuff, it's like I stepped back from the multiplayer because, like, I've been put off multiplayer for years. The last multiplayer I played regularly was Titanfall. And what was that, 2014? Like, but ever since then, I just can't get into, like, multiplayer properly. Like, I've played Halo Infinite multiplayer. I think it's fun. I love the graphics, I love the movement, the sound design. It's all good. And you've mentioned this on the show before. Like, people want more content, and this, season 2 content, it's going to last 6 months. I'll get into that in a minute. But it's like, what? It's going to be 2 maps. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think how to put this. I think 2 maps is okay if you're getting them regularly, right? I think, making content from home is obviously going to be difficult, but I don't think they were prepared for how working from home would affect them. Like, we were talking before the show, it's like things are slowly getting back to normal. Like, I can't imagine making games from home being easy because there's all these different variables. Granted, they only have to make, these games for Xbox Ones Xbox Series consoles and PCs, but it's like, you know, they were coming out with this Halo game in 2020, and then they delayed it. So it's like, what state was Halo going to be in if it originally launched? Like, was it going to launch?
Shudder to think of the.
Yeah, was it going to launch with half a multiplayer map? You know, like, you know, the thing is, I think Halo Infinite is a solid product. It's some of the best multiplayer I've played in years. You know, I've just been put off multiplayer in general for many reasons. Although I'll say that, and I've been playing Among Us and Century of Ashes almost every day. But like, I think them like getting certain Affinity on board to do Halo content, like that's a big step in the right direction, right? You know, that's good on them, and apparently like they're going to be doing like full support for the game, while, you know, 343 do maybe the Battle Royale Jez has mentioned on Twitter. And it's not enough, in my opinion. Like, I think they should just come out with a longer roadmap and just tell people the situation. Like, Season 2 is going to be 6 months long. But the problem is, right, is that I come from an age where we were getting multiplayer map packs, every 4 months or so? And, you know, you pay for your map pack and you'd get 3 maps. And that would last you until the 4 months were up, and then you'd get another map pack. Well, Halo Infinite's been out for 5 months, 6 months now almost. And it's like, there's 2 more maps coming. And it's like, it's not enough because there's been nothing in between. And we live in this age now where people's views of progression is kind of warped. Like, you know, in Halo 4, for instance, I'm just going to use Halo 4 as an example. Like, you buy Halo 4 and there was the season pass, or you just buy the map packs regularly. And again, it was 3 maps every 4 months. And that would, you know, pretty much tide everyone over. But the progression in those games, and that was the same for Call of Duty and Battlefield, like, your progression was pretty much the occasional cosmetic, and that was it. And a logo next to your name. Your rank, basically. In Call of Duty, you unlocked weapons at certain levels, and then you used those weapons to unlock attachments. And that was the progression. And also a logo next to your name. Same with Battlefield. You know, customization wasn't really a thing people heavily monetized back then. But now, with the age of, you know, battle passes, and I'm going to blame Fortnite for this. Like, people look at a battle pass, look at what it has to offer, and say that is the multiplayer point of playing. And that never used to be the case. People used to play multiplayer to enjoy it, and then to level up. Why? Just to get a fancy, you know, logo next to your name. You'd rank up, and that was it. You know, if you remember in Call of Duty, you'd prestige, and it would reset all your weapons. You'd have a different logo next to your name, and then when you got into a lobby, you'd see other people that had prestige several times over. But that person that prestiged all those times, all they were getting was a logo next to the name. But now people want cosmetics constantly. Like, the amount of times I've loaded up Twitter and I've seen people say, like, you know, I finished the battle pass for Season 1 of Halo. What do I do now? And it's like, people tie their want to play, and we've talked about this before, but it's like people tie their need to play multiplayer to earning cosmetics. Now, that's just weird to me, because I've been out of the multiplayer game since Titanfall, back when you just played to rank up. Like, same with Among Us, right? Among Us, you just get a rank. That's literally it. You level up. You get beans to spend on cosmetics, and the store offers like 3 things. You know, I think Microsoft should have been prepared. You know, Microsoft has not came out with a modern live service game. You know, people blame Xbox Game Studios and Game Pass for live services, but if you're really thinking about it, while Call of Duty and Battlefield's try, and you know, Fortnite and Apex is taking over the multiplayer scene, Microsoft on the back end for years, they've not really been competing in the modern multiplayer space. They haven't had a game with battle passes every other month. They haven't been putting out games with all these cosmetics. You know, Sea of Thieves has them, but nobody really talks about it. And it's like, I think Microsoft, and people like to blame them for everything live service based, I think Microsoft are just completely unprepared for launching a live service in the modern age. Because if this was Halo 4 in those times, they'd be putting out a map pack every other month. I don't know. Do I sound crazy?
No, not at all, Jamie. The whole thing is just extremely disappointing. Um, that's the nice way to put it. I don't know. I don't want to harp on them. I don't want to. I'm not calling for people's jobs or anything crazy like that. But at some point, there has to be accountability and understanding of what your responsibility is as the steward of the premier franchise of the brand, or at least it has been up until this point. Like, I've never been a 343 hater. I've never been like, oh, Bungie's the goat. They did this, and everything they did is sacred, and you can't touch it or this. I've never been that way. Adding Sprint to the game, cool. Halo 4's visuals and story, amazing. Halo 4 holds up to this day. I love Halo 4 personally. I think it's phenomenal. Halo 5, yes, step back. And they've made some head scratching decisions here and there. But overall, I've supported their direction, but there comes to a point where you make enough mistakes. Eventually, there needs to be some oversight into what's going on. Like, how on earth did you think this game was ready in 2020? Period. Just point blank. What how could you possibly think? Like, we see where it is now. Imagine 2 years ago, this game. Like, we think it has a dearth of, or a lack of content. Like, what would it have launched with? Like, it's just crazy. And I know it sounds like big boomer energy or like, oh, back in my day, but like, seriously, we talked about it earlier, like the 360 era. Like, you could buy a map pack and you get several maps every few months or a season pass or whatever. And I get that this is live service and so thus it's free. And so it becomes the whole debate, would you rather pay and get good content regularly or be free and twiddle your thumbs for half a year and get two maps, one in each category, and then free modes, one of which has been a staple of Halo since the beginning, and frankly, a lot of people feel should have been in there to begin with when the game launched. And the fact that Mission Select is still not in the game, where you can go back and choose different missions for skulls and collectibles you missed, is nuts. And then the fact that co-op, like, not only did you not have it period in Halo 5, but that you're so behind the eight ball with co-op that it's getting pushed this far out into development and it's potentially being split up between split screen and online when it comes in. And so there's that, and then Forge is taking forever. And maybe if they had put more time in the Forge, the community could have actually been making maps and get some content out and getting some engagement going. But Forge has been pushed out. And then on top of that, you're wasting time removing a glitch, the tank gun glitch. I don't know how familiar you are with that or not, but basically there's this invisible scorpion gun you can get in a certain level near the beginning of the game, and if you get it you can hold it, and it's basically a one hit one kill kind of gun. People were using it for lasso. It wasn't a game breaking thing, it wasn't anything outrageous, it was just some fun gag that was in the game and people were using it. So they decided to devote time to remove that and focus on that instead of some other stuff, something that people actually found fun. So all in all, it seems like there's just this big lack of awareness and clarity and understanding of what the community is looking for. I think we've talked a lot. I think the Halo community is like feral, frankly, a
Yeah.
lot of the time. Just downright just nuts. But in this particular area, I get it. I get why people are mad and frustrated. Like, this is a legendary franchise. It's one of my favorite of all time. It's special to me. And to see how it has been stewarded and handled, it's upsetting. And I don't like it. I'm not a get mad at people, rage people, don't get people, whatever. But at the same time, I feel like how 343 has handled this has been less than it deserves, frankly, and that bringing certain affinity on at the very least as a bare minimum is necessary to help with this game, and that no, maybe some changes need to be considered, and I'll just put it at that.
You know, you're right. Like, I think they do need change. You know, Microsoft's been very hands off when it comes to development, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe they need to be more hands on with the multiplayer team and support, because again, we live in an age where people want content all the time. You know, be it cosmetics, season passes, battle passes, and maps and stuff. And it's like, getting certain if we need to work on the game, that's a good move because they have a lot of history with multiplayer games. So like that's a step in the right direction. But like I think just Microsoft need to like rein in the multiplayer team a bit and like say like what's the deal, what's going on, because like the pandemic stuff that affected like all game developers. Like I remember Gotham Knights was originally going to come out in 2020. It comes out later this year. So it pushed a lot of development back like 8 to 18 months in a lot of cases. But for multiplayer for Halo, like it's an important thing. They need to keep on it, and I think they'll get better at it. Again, the support hasn't been the best so far, And while you were talking, I thought I'd just check, see what Call of Duty Vanguard's maps situation's been like, and I'm surprised. They've gotten now, and if this list's incorrect, people can tell me because this is from GamesAtlas.com. They've put out 6 multiplayer maps since launch.
For a dead game, right?
Yeah, for a game a lot of people consider dead. Although there's people I know that play it and they love the game. So and I don't really play Vanguard, so I can't really say much on it. But like 6 maps in 6 months, I'd say to me that seems fair. But when it comes to Call of Duty maps, like I've not seen a single trailer online for maps, like for Call of Duty now. Like ever since everything went free to play, I want to say like the multiplayer maps. Like I never see any hype for map packs anymore. People don't really describe them as map packs. They call them seasons, and you get different things in those seasons now. And it's like, in my opinion, the battle pass in general is completely messed up multiplayer. Look at Battlefield 2042. That's a joke of a game at this point. But it's like that game's first season doesn't start till summer. like oof. But yeah, I mean, I think the multiplayer situation needs to be sorted. Like you're saying, people want more content, and the Halo fan base has been pretty feral in the past. Like, no matter what, people will complain. But at this situation, people are right to speak up about it. But we'll move on to the whole battle royale thing. Jez came out and said that there's going to be a battle royale mode, and I know that if Xbox's still listening, I've had some choice words about battle royales in the past when it comes to Halo, because honestly, and someone could clip this, and I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. I honestly think that battle royale could potentially destroy Halo multiplayer. Now you might be wondering, where the hell am I going with this? I sound like a madman. So when Call of Duty, was it Modern Warfare? Yeah, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 came out. People were enjoying the multiplayer. The campaign was awesome. The zombies mode was pretty cool. And then, right as the pandemic kicked off and people were stuck at home, we got Warzone, right? And it came out at the best time, in my opinion. That game benefited the most from all the lockdowns because people were stuck in the house, bored, and I'd say all the content creators for Call of Duty all of a sudden shifted and became battle royale streamers. And I noticed this, like, Vicstar 123, Dr. Disrespect and Tim the Tapman, like these huge streamers, I noticed would only play battle royales, and then when they talked about Call of Duty, they'd just talk about Warzone. And it was almost as if there was this monumental shift in the topic and the conversation of multiplayer, that it's not just Call of Duty, it's Warzone. Nobody talks about Call of Duty multiplayer. Like I didn't even know they had multiple map packs out, but people just talk about Warzone. People talk about how and by the way, Godzilla and King Kong are going to be in Warzone in May. I'm
That's
downloading.
awesome.
Yeah, I'm downloading it just for that. I want to see them two fight, but it's like that's my worry for Halo. I'm worried that, you know, Smokey said in a chat, Fortnite Zero build mode is probably the best BR going right now. I really need to try that. You know, and Xbox just said that the last Spartan standing is basically Battle Royale light. Now, a lot of people have been saying that, but I just see it as free for all, you know? I think Battle Royale takes away the conversation of multiplayer in general. Like, I've seen these Battle Royale streamers, like, they've literally gotten bored on stream of the game they're playing, let's say Warzone, and they'll literally look for another Battle Royale they can stream and play. It's like, you didn't even think about clicking on the Call of Duty multiplayer. You had to think of like another Battle Royale game. And I'm just sick of Battle Royales, man. I played PUBG when it came out. I loved it. And I got sick of the fact that I couldn't get a chicken dinner no matter how hard I tried, right? And then Fortnite came out and pretty much dominated the market, you know, to the point where Ninja was on, like, you know, ESPN magazine or whatever the hell you want to call it. And it's like, Battle Royales took the center stage for multiplayer. And, you know, that's what got me hyped about Halo. It's that it was bringing back arena-style multiplayer, something of which we haven't had in years, since Halo 5's arena multiplayer. And it's like, I'm worried that Battle Royale for Halo will just take away from the rest of the multiplayer experience. Because, again, I didn't know that Call of Duty still got map packs, you know, with its seasons. I don't know, man. Like, what's your thought on the whole Battle Royale thing? Because I get salty. I know for a fact I sound salty and angry when Battle Royale comes up because my blood boils for some reason and I can't help it. But yeah, what's your thought on the whole Battle Royale Halo thing?
Well, I can sympathize with you on it. I I see it from two different mindsets. One, I see it as, you know, this is gonna set whatever. It's a Star Wars quote, but you know, Kyle Katarn says powers aren't inherently good or evil. It's how you use them that makes them that way. It kind of feels like that a little bit for Battle Royale for Halo. Like, we talked about how the community's feral at this point for content, and like Battle Royale would be some content. It would be an additional mode that's actually new and something different for the game, which it desperately needs. But on the other hand, it is very much not Halo as we know it. Um, I've heard some good arguments in its defense. Like Nick from Xbox Era, I know I listened to their pod the other day, and he had some good points about it. About, you know, like at the very beginning, Halo's kind of always had room for a battle royale type experience. You know, you had these huge maps like Valhalla and all these things that are huge, and then you could totally fit a whole bunch of people in maps like that. Drop down as ODSTs or whatever, and it's like they've always had the grounds and the recipe for it. They just never did it. Me, it fits, but I think as a separate mode and entity entirely. And I don't think you should, as a game company, look to just appease the big streamer market, because those guys are they're a dime a dozen. I mean, there are a ton of streamers out there. And then, yes, there are a few that are big names. But at the end of the day, if they're just solely focused on something and their followers are, that's just what they're going to be focused on. Like, you should court the people who have actually been loyal to the brand this whole time and aren't just chasing a fad. So, to me, it does feel like anti Halo, but at the same time, I could see it fit within its universe, and it could be the adrenaline shot in the arm it needs to turbocharge and get going again. So yeah, and like Last Spartan Standing isn't, to me, doesn't feel like battle royale. It feels more like an old arcade kind of multiplayer mode, where you get a certain amount of lives and you whittle them down, and then last person alive is last person alive. It just feels like something from old Time Splitters 2 to me, to be honest. Um, but yeah, they desperately need content. I understand the concern that it's not Halo traditionally, but like Jez said on Xbox Two, they were at one point considering a hero shooter mode for Halo, which I think would be fascinating if they'd put in personally. Kind of like an Overwatch type thing where you've got imagine this is me quote coming up with an example. This was not from him specifically. But like imagine you have a Sergeant Johnson character who's like a heavy, or you have like a grunt who's, a lightweight character who has certain abilities and stuff like that. Like I could see a world where that would work in Halo, even though it is not Halo, so to speak. At some point, you have to learn to hold your tradition, but also adapt and bring in new ideas. And so, when your franchise is at a tipping point, it's like, are you going to be beholden to the past and maybe go down with the ship, or are you going to go jump forward and do your best to remember and keep the past going forward, but also not be left behind?
You know, uh, you've got a point. Like, before I continue rambling about this, really helps the channel out if people like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff. Um, yeah. So the whole battle royale thing and hero shooter thing, I have to admit, I know for a fact it would get more people playing the game. Right? I'm not dumb. I'm just angry. Apparently, of just the thought of battle royale being a thing. Um, I know it would bring in a lot of people. I know that, right? It's just I used to see Halo as this arena shooter. That's why I want Quake to come back, because I want arena shooters to be a thing. Like side strafing, shooting rockets at each other. That's why I'm still angry over the fact that Doom multiplayer from the closed alpha in 2015 will never be a thing. It's some of the best multiplayer I've ever played, and most people have never played it, and it was amazing. And it's like that was pure hardcore arena multiplayer, and that's what I thought Halo was going to be. For the longest time, it's like in Halo 5 there was a multiplayer mode called Breakout. I loved that mode. Each round was maybe like 30 seconds long or something, and it was best of 5. And it's like, to me, that was amazing. Maybe honestly I think they should put that in Halo Infinite. But like, the problem is that whenever I talk about how salty I am about, battle royale and Halo, it's that people always say, "Look, Jamie, it's just another game mode, right? It's just like capture the flag and team deathmatch or Slayer. It's just another mode." My problem with that statement is that people don't treat Battle Royale as its own mode. Like, you never see Battle Royales listed with a bunch of other game modes. People just see Battle Royale and they go to it. It's like, Warzone is a separate thing from regular Call of Duty. And it's like, see more love for Breakout in chat. Thank you. Breakout in Halo 5 was, I'm going to use a Durham term here. Breakout was mint, right? I love Breakout. But yeah, I mean, look, the hero shooter thing, as much as I cringe at the term hero shooter, I know for a fact Halo would suit it. Like, you're saying that you could have like a crazy grunt or something, pretty much any just Halo character in general would be cool to play as. I'll admit, right, Battle Royale, it's probably happening. Jez mentioned it, and it's like, it's going to get more eyes on Halo. It's going to get more support, and maybe that's what they need. Just they need more eyes on Halo to inject some, enthusiasm into the team to get out more content. There, I admit it. I'm defeated, right? Uh, but I think Halo evolving, it makes sense. Like, I'm not stuck in the past. I don't need Halo to just be walking to your next target, and just walking. Like, can you imagine a battle royale, by the way, in Halo, if you couldn't grab ledges or run? Like, that would be the most
Oh
boring
man,
thing.
it'd take forever.
Yeah, like some of these maps for like Warzone and like Fortnite, these maps are huge. Like, if you had to just walk, like PUBG, you walk 90% of the time. Or at least in my case, I did, because I was terrible at driving. But it's like, walking took so long, and it's, imagine if a Halo came out, you could just walk. Like, yeah, that's a rant for another day. But like, look, I do think Battle Royale would help. Doesn't mean I'd play it, but hey, it could do the franchise some good. And Anyway, we'll move on. uh, more Ubisoft stuff to talk about. So, Xbox came out with another list of games coming to Game Pass as they do once or twice a month. No big deal, right? Some of the games there, take it or leave it. But one of the cool announcements is that they announced a game coming to Game Pass in the next 2 months, and that being Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, that's interesting because we've not had an Assassin's Creed game in Game Pass at all. So this is the first game in the franchise to be in Game Pass. But what's also interesting is that Ubisoft said in November that they are working or looking into a 60 FPS mode or 60 FPS update for Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, that game on Xbox One X, and it's the same on Series X and Series S, whatever, that game is beautiful. I think it was like 1800p. It's arguably still one of the best looking games out there because Ancient Egypt is phenomenal in that game. And yeah, to me, it just screams that we're going to get the 60 FPS update when it drops in Game Pass. It seems like it would be a big deal for people. And, that game still has expansions that I think people need to play. Like, I have one of the expansions I still haven't played yet. And the 60 FPS mode would, like, pretty much, send me over the edge and actually play it. What's your whole thought on the whole, like, Game Pass Assassin's Creed Origins thing?
Oh, it's a big get. You know, Assassin's Creed Origins was like the first new Assassin's Creed to kind of take their formula forward as they've adapted over the years. Like, there was Assassin's Creed 1 and then 2 kind of took it forward and added open world elements. So, a little bit, and then 3 even more so, and then 4 added naval combat, and then they jumped to this one, and it's like way more expansive and quests focused and more frankly like an RPG. And then Odyssey took it a step further, and then Valhalla is like another thing entirely. So this is a really good one to jump in. Ancient Egypt has always been fascinating to me. I love it personally. So I definitely recommend it for folks.
Yeah, it's a hell of a game, and you're saying it was like the next jump in Assassin's Creed because this is the point where Assassin's Creed basically became an RPG. You know, it pretty much kind of took what worked in Witcher 3 and then kind of brought it over to Assassin's Creed, and it worked. And Ancient Egypt in that game is phenomenal. Like going inside the pyramids and stuff, and it's like if people haven't played it when it's in Game Pass, and they said within 2 months, in my opinion, it's probably going to drop the same day as their summer event. Kind of makes sense. But yeah, phenomenal game. And what leads me into the next topic is that Ubisoft is looking to be bought, or I should say that there's going to be a buyout. Now, for the longest time, Ubisoft was staring off from being bought out by Viacom because they wanted to be this French-owned company, not taken over by any like huge corporation. It's like Ubisoft had a tough year and a half, a certain like work about, I should say, news about certain work conditions and stuff. And it's like, you have to think, Ubisoft, they are a huge organization. They have like over 12,000 developers or something, teams all the way around the world. And, if a project does not do well, especially for them, like, it can really hurt them because, like, I can imagine paying 12,000 people. It's going to cost a lot. And, they're looking at private equity companies to, like, invest money. And, I've gone over a bunch of articles on this, and it's like, they can be bought out. And a lot of people are suggesting Sony. A lot of people are suggesting Microsoft. I've seen some people suggest Take-Two. If anyone's ever suggested Take-Two, please delete those tweets. Don't give them any hope and thought and idea of doing that. Like, I don't want Take-Two to own Assassin's Creed. That would be horrible. They'd put shark cards in Assassin's Creed, right? Stop it. But yeah, it's a big deal because Ubisoft, they put out some of the biggest games of the year. Like, a lot of people don't want to admit that, but they do. Assassin's Creed is huge every year. They put out other games that aren't massive, but they're still really good. Immortals Phoenix Rising, phenomenal game. For Honor still gets content. Rainbow Six Siege still gets content. And, for them, like, basically come out and say, like, they're looking to be bought out, that's a big deal. It really is. And some people think that Microsoft's already bought them. And it's like with all the whole Activision stuff, which we'll talk about later. It's like I don't think Microsoft would risk losing Activision because of their interest in Ubisoft, because of the amount of money Activision makes supersedes the amount of money that Ubisoft makes. Like Candy Crush alone makes as much money as an Assassin's Creed does. Like, it's kind of crazy, you know. Um, I don't know. What's your take on this whole Ubisoft thing?
Yeah, like personally to me, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole right now if I was Microsoft. Even if they were quote unquote truly interested, like legitimately looking into it, financials, like how much would it cost, this, that. I just don't think it would be worth scrutiny of when they're already under more pressure and more eyes watching them and more people kind of just poking at them and prodding and trying to manage everything they do around this Activision Blizzard deal. I just think it would be unwise to try to throw another big ticket item purchase around that time. Is there anything illegal about it? No, not at all. And, I personally don't think it's a monopoly what they're doing with Activision Blizzard anyway. But I'm just saying, the folks that make a deal about that, if you added this on top of that, those people would be just like outrageously obnoxious, like and loud and vocal at this point. And I just don't think would I think it would behoove them to stay more under the radar, which they have. Like we haven't heard hardly a peep from Xbox or Microsoft since they announced it January 18th, 3 months ago. That there has been hardly anything except God will stay multiplat or here's some sale figures which we'll talk about in a little bit. And like very minute just matter of fact things to help assuage fears and say, okay, we're going to do this with our store policy, or we're going to cooperate with investigators, or we're going to work with them, and we're going to play nice, and whatever they want, they get. Like, they have been out of their way, quiet, and yes, sir, yes, ma'am type. I just, even though Ubi is tempting in a way with some of their IP and the amount of staff they have and everything, I just personally don't think it would be worth it to me if I was Xbox or even Sony for that matter. Like you want to talk about market position, Sony is ahead of Xbox in terms of like size as part of you know currently in the market. Um, so if they were to do it, like it would make even more question marks about them. Like if anybody was to buy them besides a private equity, I would think it would be like a Tencent or maybe Embracer if they could raise that much money. But I don't know. I just have this feeling that EA and them merging would be an idea. Because EA has said they want to be aggressors in this acquisition season, quote unquote. You know, all proceeds to Nick from Xbox era trademark. But just how EA says they want to be aggressors and they're going to be looking, and if Ubisoft's being defensive and kind of like maybe we should look to do something different with our position, I could totally see a scenario where they merge and you have a super publisher now going forward. I don't know. What do you think of that idea?
The EA thing actually makes sense, and I've really thought about that because they've said they do not want to be bought out. They are looking to buy other, companies, and it's like, I think they make enough money that they could actually afford it. And I'm not going to turn this into a whole hating on EA thing. I think EA has made some good moves over the past, year and a half when it comes to like how they've treated certain teams and developers and stuff. It's like they're making some good decisions over there. They're allowed to make single player games now, which is cool. They can use whatever engine they want, which is awesome. And it's like Ubisoft kind of fits the bill. Like, and the thing is, Ubisoft makes the games that EA really doesn't put out at the minute. They don't really have an open world action adventure slash sci-fi, or I should say RPG franchise like Assassin's Creed. They don't really have that. They don't have a franchise like Immortals, Phoenix Rising. Rainbow Six Siege would fill a big gap um, for EA at the minute because Apex is pretty much their bread and butter when it comes to first-person shooters. I think the EA thing does make a lot more sense, like, than anyone else, and like even people in chat are saying, like, Microsoft do not want more eyes on them right now than they already have. Like, Microsoft want this Activision thing to go through. Honestly, if it was up to me at the end of the day, because I'm being greedy, I would have wished that they went for Warner Brothers games over Activision. But I know how much money Activision makes, so it's like, yeah, that makes sense. So I don't think Microsoft will go for it. It doesn't make much sense, especially with Ubisoft, I should say Activision, hanging by a thread at the minute. We don't know the whole situation with that, which we'll talk about in a bit. But it's like, Ubisoft just doesn't make sense, and I don't think they make sense for Sony either. Like you were saying, Embracer Group, that they would be a good pick. I don't know if they have the capital to actually buy Ubisoft, but if they could raise it, that would make sense. And Embracer Group's funny because most people don't know who they are. It's like Deep Silver, THQ Nordic, and like the all different publishers, but they're the same company. It's like it's very confusing. For them, it would probably make sense to just buy Ubisoft and just call themselves Ubisoft Corp. Um, that is interesting. Like, whenever one of these companies comes out and says like they are looking to be bought out, these questions are going to be arisen, right? People think like, imagine if Microsoft got like Assassin's Creed, like that would obviously get them like a lot of eyes and a lot of money in the future. But it's like, I don't think it makes much sense. Like Microsoft, they want Call of Duty, they want World of Warcraft. Like if World of Warcraft can get back to how it used to be, and then they put that on console, like that would make a ridiculous amount of money. And plus, I think people do want World of Warcraft on Xbox. But yeah, I don't think it'd be the best decision to do and get Ubisoft. Again, I love Assassin's Creed, and all these publishers, they don't need to be bought out. Ubisoft's had some questionable decisions and things they've done over the past year and a half, and it's like, I think this is Ubisoft just wanting an easy way out. Like that's what it screams to me. Them looking for private equity, investors like this far into the game when, again, they were staring off from being bought out by Viacom, 4 years ago? Like, this is the same thing right now that could happen to them. It's a weird situation. The whole acquisition season thing, like, ever since Microsoft bought Bethesda specifically, this question comes up all the time. It comes up for Sony all the time and Microsoft, and it's like, the truth is, we don't find out about any of these companies being bought out until it's happened, right? Sony's bought 7 studios in the past year. None of them leaks at all. The Bethesda thing didn't leak at all. And the Activision thing, like, that is the biggest gaming news of all time, right? And that didn't leak. So I don't think, the fact that we've heard nothing, it could be a sign of something happening, but at the same time, it's like, it wouldn't be so public about how they're looking to be bought out if there was already some interest by someone like Microsoft or Sony or whatever. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it would be interesting to see what's going to happen because, again, Ubisoft games make a lot of money. That's when they sell well. They put out games that don't do well sometimes. Like that Skull and Bones thing just got rebranded. Its font looks actually, usable now. The state of their games, we still don't know what's happening. Apparently, we're going to see like 20 games this summer, their summer showcase. Maybe once that's happened, maybe Microsoft and Sony will take more interest. Maybe when the Activision thing is finally went through, which we'll talk about in a bit, maybe something will happen there. But I think, people pushing Microsoft or Sony to buy Ubisoft, it's like, I don't think it's realistic at this point, especially with, again, Amazon still at the, not Amazon. Oh my God, just imagine if Amazon bought them. Oh, like,
no, bad.
Like,
don't take that out of existence.
Like, them or Tencent. Ugh, no. Okay,
Oh
fine.
no,
Yeah,
bad.
that would be horrible. Although I do love how, as gamers, we are all against Tencent. It's like
This is the one thing we agree on.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
and like Tencent, they're gonna come out with a streaming service at some point. It's inevitable. They already have a controller painted it, which looks like a weird mix up of a NES controller and an Xbox controller. Doesn't look good, but again, that's a story for another day. You know, Hacky Sacked in chat just said, "I need my Beyond Good and Evil 2." I've got some bad news for you. I heard a while back that it's gonna get cancelled.
No.
Like, here's the thing:
God dang.
Ubisoft stuff like that's you know when it comes to Assassin's Creed, their stuff leaks all the time. When it comes to stuff outside of Assassin's Creed, it's kind of uh, touch and go. Like the Beyond Good and Evil stuff I've heard is that they don't know what the game's going to be, and that they're thinking about canceling it. And when I've heard that in the past, it always leads to a cancellation. But when I saw Beyond Good and Evil 2 at what 2017, whatever it was, like that.
It's been a hot minute.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a while. It's like that game looked phenomenal. We've never seen anything that was basically, the city streets and like the city traffic and the film Fifth Element. That's basically what we saw in that game. Like we never seen that before. And we may never see it again. It's like I want the game to happen, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Don't get me wrong, it looked cool. I'd buy it day one. If I never saw another trailer for that game when they released it, I'd buy it because I'm a sci-fi fan and that looked amazing. But yeah, we'll move on. So Xbox Series sales. Now, this past March was the best-selling March for an Xbox console since 2011. And 2011 was a big year for Xbox 360 because, that generation was ridiculous for Microsoft. They were selling millions of consoles every single month. But again, they came out and said, like, profits are up. I think profits are up 38%, was it? But again, in a time of the pandemic and the chip shortage is affecting everything, every industry. And it's like, even during that, even though apparently Microsoft did pay for, chip priority, which is a thing companies do, Nvidia and AMD have done it in the past, it's normal. They still selling ridiculous amounts of units. And it's like, I've seen some people bring up, like, why are people celebrating sales? And it's like, it's not really about celebrating sales. It's celebrating the fact that Microsoft, they've came a long way over this past generation. Like, they were a running joke when the Xbox One came out, to the point where a lot of people jumped ship. But now, a generation later, they have this service that's, let's be honest, it's kick-ass, right? Game Pass, it rocks, right? It has a lot of value, it offers a lot of games, and day-and-date games are huge for the service. That's getting a lot of people on board. They bought more studios in 2018 than they had already, right? So it's like they've came a long way, and Xbox is finally at a point where they are not just competing on the game level; they're competing on all fronts. The hardware is top notch. They offer two different varieties. Do you want the smaller, cheaper console, or do you want the big fridge that's powerful, And they offer a variety of games in development right now that they weren't offering before. Like, Microsoft is basically the biggest developer of RPGs right now. Like if you told me a generation ago that would be a thing, I tell you you're lying. I wouldn't believe you. And it's like, now their consoles are selling ridiculous. Like, they're pretty much toe and toe with PlayStation 5. And PlayStation 5, they had like a really good setup, right? The PlayStation 4 was huge. A lot of people jumped from Xbox 360 to PlayStation 4 because of the whole launch, fiasco. And it's like, I've been told by people that they've like came back, they've bought an Xbox like Series X or S because it's cheap, Game Pass situation, and Microsoft's in a good place right now. They are pro-consumer pretty much more than anyone else. They offer the refund policy at Microsoft is really good. The game situation, day one, day and date games. Like, what's your whole thought on the whole, like, the sales going up for these consoles?
Well, I think it's a big deal. because like you astutely mentioned, Xbox One launch wasn't so great. Putting it mildly. Um, and how there were some people, even prominent analysts, who were basically questioning whether it would continue to exist or not, the brand, or if it would have funding, or why doesn't Microsoft just take this out back to the woodshed, kind of like as a side project, just get rid of it. And then it's done just a complete 180 from there, where it's actually, along with Microsoft Office, like the biggest moneymaker for Microsoft as a whole. Like the gaming vision is killing it right now. And they're firing on all cylinders. Phil is one of the CEOs at Microsoft now. Like, he's ascended to a very, very highly prominent rank at Microsoft. It shows that they are all in on gaming. When they bought Bethesda, he there's a famous quote of when he talked to the board and they were like, "You know what? This is awesome. Who's next? What's next? Like, we're all in." And then, Satya wearing Halo Infinite gear going, "We're all in." And then they buy Activision Blizzard cuz they're all in. And he didn't even mention it in the show notes, but they're hiring a position for, you guessed it, more acquisitions and content and technology development. So they're looking to add even more to their arsenal. And if people are buying into the vision with Game Pass and with all these first party studios, xCloud, all their features they're doing, their backwards compatibility, their accessibility, the overall tone and message, the community. Just Xbox is absolutely on one right now, and they're doing a great job. And I know we don't have like definitive numbers, like we have sold this many exactly units or whatever, but we do have rough estimates of like, yeah, it's better than this or that, and it is better than their best March ever, which was 11 years ago. And then on top of that, Ina Bass of Bloomberg, who I recommend y'all follow if you haven't already. She's a good tech reporter. She talked with Amy Hood and the chief financial officer of Microsoft, and they said that not only was it the best March the Xbox has ever had, it was the best first 3 months they've ever had in a year, or best non-holiday quarter ever for Xbox. Like, Xbox has they have hit their momentum, and this was without Activision Blizzard being approved yet, or without major first-party titles fully hitting their stride, joining the platform yet. They've had a few, but they haven't hit their every game every quarter yet fully. And so people have bought in, and it's a great time as an Xbox fan, especially when you remember how things weren't so hot a few years ago.
That's a good point. Like, their games, the big games, haven't started to drop yet. Like the Starfields, the Avowed, all that stuff, and it's like it's just going to continue to get better. And the thing is, as gamers, what do we benefit from this? Well, at the end, we benefit from just more content, more money going into the service, means more games for us. And look at Microsoft this time last generation, right? So into the second year, like in 2015, like a lot of people didn't know what to do with like Microsoft. Like they didn't know the state of the game development. Like they had like what 4 or 5 studios. It's like it was unclear Microsoft's future, right? Nobody knew. Microsoft didn't have a vision. Sony's was, look, we're going to put out this console. We're going to put out these single player games people like. And it works, right? It really works for them. But Microsoft didn't have a vision for the longest time. And then with the Xbox, One S and the refinement, and then the One X, and then Game Pass in like, was it 2018 or something? It's like they had this vision of like, giving you a ton of content. Because the thing is, most gamers apparently, remember, these are the casuals. They buy 2 games a year. So we'll just use dollars at the minute. let's say that's $120, and Microsoft will only get a certain cut of that, depending on if it was third party or not. It's like these millions of people subscribed every month. Microsoft is getting all the money to that, and yes, they do pay for games up front and that, but that's a different thing. But it's like Microsoft are making hundreds of millions per month, guaranteed by subscribers, which they can put into getting, deals for day one games, making games, buying studios. And it's like there's just more and more subscribers every month, and it's like that's guaranteed money. Those subscriptions are guaranteed money. People like to say, to concern show, like, oh, they just did the dollar a month thing. It's like, it's unrealistic to think that, 25 plus million people are doing that. That's like a little side thing some people can do. Like, you can't even do it in the UK. Like, the £1 deal thing, you get it once, and that's it. But you can't really, like, roll it over month after month after month. And it's like, what Microsoft has now is a vision. You pay this a little bit of amount of money, you get access to all these games. You also get access to discounts. And they also have things like All Access, where you can get a console interest-free. Like that's a prospect you couldn't even thought of, like, last generation, because the situation with Microsoft was so unclear. We didn't know the games were coming. We didn't know if many games were coming. They didn't have many studios making games, and whenever they signed on deals to do games with other people, they always fell through. Scalebound fell through. Crackdown 3 didn't live up to what it was. Fun game, by the way. Fun action game. But it's like, that wasn't what we were promised. And it's like, Quantum Break didn't do the sales they wanted. And if you go back to 2015, when they start talking about Quantum Break, this was going to be a big franchise for Microsoft. And it didn't do well, Resolution Gate, in my opinion, killed that game. Right? As soon as it came out, it was checkerboard rendering. That's all people were talking about, despite the fact that it has realistic graphics. But Microsoft was like, people were unsure about it, right? But now you have people looking at Microsoft and what they offer and thinking, you know what, I'm going to buy one of these consoles because they have a lot to offer. And that's without the whole Activision thing. And then when that goes through, like, think of the millions of people that buy COD every year without fail. Then people buying an Xbox to subscribe to, Game Pass. Because remember the Xbox 360 generation, where people would buy an Xbox just to get maps a month early? And then these people that still play COD will be offered to get Call of Duty every year via a subscription service. That's guaranteed billions of dollars. Billions. And in the end run, we're just going to see more games. And it's like, the end run, it's like, Microsoft doing well, like they are right now, is the best situation for everyone. Because imagine if we lived in a world where it was just Sony and Nintendo. Nintendo Switch would be doing well, obviously. The PlayStation would be doing well, obviously. But PlayStation would be in such a situation where they could literally control the market and the price. They could have raised games to $90. Like, then there's no competition. That's the danger right there. Hell, they raised, the price of games already, but it's like, it's healthy for Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo to all succeed, because that's how we all win, And now we finally in a place after, like, think about it, during the Xbox 360 generation, like, the PS3 was a joke. That thing launched at like £600 in the UK. That's like $800, right? That was ridiculous. And for the longest time, it was like, the reason I got one was to play a Metal Gear Solid 4 and to use as a Blu-ray player. That was it. And, PlayStation, they got out of the hole. They worked at it, and PlayStation 4 was a huge success. The Xbox 360 was a colossal success, despite the fact it had, the Red Ring of Death situation. And the Xbox One launched, the situation was so unclear, people didn't know what to do. A lot of people jumped ship, to the point where Phil Spencer was like, a lot of people were asking Phil, like, is Xbox going to be a thing a year from now? Like literally, Xbox was on the brink of collapse. And not only did it come back and, like, they get, like, market share again, like, they are looked at now as pretty much the number one, like, competitor when it comes to your money and your wallet. And it's like, we should commend them for that. Like, Microsoft's came a long way. And, we may see the same cycle next generation. PlayStation might, like, mess something up or something on Nintendo. It's like, these companies bouncing back, it's better for everyone in the end run. And, we'll just loop this into the whole Activision thing, because Um, you said there's been an update on the whole Activision thing, yeah?
Yeah, the latest is that they're officially the boards both have approved. Activision's board and Microsoft's board have approved the sale. So I mean that's old news, but that resurfaced. And then there was guess what? Another lawsuit against Activision.
Shocker.
Um, I know, I shouldn't laugh about lawsuits, but I mean, it's just like it seems like one comes out of the woodwork every week against this company. Um, but yeah, so that's another thing they're gonna have to deal with. Um, and on positive news about Activision Blizzard, though, this Thursday, the 28th, is the official vote for the shareholders. And if you're a shareholder, you can vote, yes or no to approve the deal or abstain or whatever. And, you would expect it to pass, but, until it happens, we'll see. And then they'll announce the results like May 4th, May 5th, something like that. So, assuming that passes, that's another major hurdle crossed for the deal going through. And then that will leave all that's left is making sure the FTC and the political forces at B are appeased and happy with things, whether that means you have to make settlements about, yes, we won't increase price of Game Pass, or we promise, pinky promise, whatever, that these games will remain multi-plat, whatever, or maybe without any settlements. But that will be the last remaining hurdle for them, assuming the vote passes. And the vote is Thursday, and they should announce the results the 4th or 5th in May.
Okay, so honestly, I think it's going to happen. You know, there's been deals almost as big as this before, and they happened. Remember the whole Disney Fox situation? It was basically the same thing, and that passed without any issue. They have said Call of Duty will remain multi-platform, but I do think if and when this deal goes through, and we see things like Prototype and Singularity return. By the way, I'm going to push Singularity 2 until I get my game right. I'm
I
getting
want it too, man.
yeah, like I think those games in general they'll be just Xbox and PC, but like Call of Duty is always going to be the multi tens of millions of seller titles. So it's like it makes sense. It's basically them Activision's Minecraft in a way. If Minecraft was like exclusive to Xbox, like that would have been like kind of somewhat disastrous for Sony in a way. But the fact that again it's on everything, you could play it on mobile. I think there was a 3DS version at one point. It's on Switch. And even Phil Spencer said like bringing Call of Duty to Nintendo would be a priority, and it's like that makes so much sense. Like there isn't a first-person competitive shooter like Call of Duty on Nintendo Switch. It's like that's guaranteed billion right there. Although I do think they should bring the first Call of Duty Black Ops to Switch because I just think it would work. But yeah, I think it's all looking good, and we'll probably see this passed. And when this passes, if this passes, the amount of games going to Game Pass will be staggering. Like the back catalogue of games is insane. Like you look at all the backwards compatible stuff that's just linked to Activision. There's a lot there. All the Call of Duty games, the Prototype 1, Prototype 2, all that stuff. And who knows, maybe even then we could see games that aren't backwards compatible maybe get support. Like Singularity. I'm going to talk about that game until I get something Singularity related, but there are Activision games that still aren't backwards compatible, and I think people would like that. I don't know. Have you got anything else to say on the whole Activision topic? Because I think we've talked about this a lot.
Oh yeah, I understand. People are probably like, "Oh my gosh, Activision Blizzard again." But I mean, it literally, I mean, it's like clockwork. Something new comes out about it every week. Whether it's somebody's disgruntled about something, somebody's suing somebody, or somebody's thinking about resurrecting some game. It seems like something new every week with it. Um, But yeah, I agree. Like they have so many IPs, I can't wait to see come back, assuming the deal happens. One last thing on it, I forgot to mention earlier, is that National Labor Board or whatever went ahead and authorized a vote for unionization for um, Raven. The QA
Oh
testers
yeah, yeah.
at Raven who are wanting to unionize. They've officially their efforts have been officially recognized as sanctioned, and they're being like, okay, you may hold a vote. And so in May, that I guess would be yet another potential hurdle or potential help to the efforts of the Activision deal. Um, Next month, they will hold their vote, and we will find out whether Raven will officially become the first gaming union, or not. If see if they don't reach the majority or they change their minds or whatever. But it could potentially be a seismic thing, not only for Activision Blizzard, but how the game industry operates in general. So that's something to keep an eye on as well.
You know that I think that's a good thing because like I think the QA team like the story came out about them and like they weren't promised like you know anything. They were all led to believe they would get like full-time jobs and stuff, and it's like it was a messy situation. They were trashed pretty badly. So this is a step in the good direction in my opinion. Again, these people are testing your games that make billions of dollars. Like pay them. Like it should be a no-brainer. And I don't think I don't think they'd be a whole opposed to the whole like Microsoft buyout because again Microsoft's number one on Glassdoor when it comes to like working conditions and all that stuff. So I think it would just benefit the QA team in general really. Um, before we close out the show, I want to talk about Star Wars games. I was thinking about saving this till next week, but may as well just talk about it now since May is right around the corner. So there's a bunch of Star Wars games in development, and in my opinion, we don't get enough. Like, remember during the Xbox PS2 generation, GameCube, like we were getting Star Wars games, maybe once every few months, like all the
Oh man,
time.
it was euphoria. It was amazing.
Yeah, like outside of the PC games at that time, because PC were getting all the RTS games like Empire at War and stuff, but like I think there was like 28 games across the three platforms during that generation, and it's like less and less games we were getting each generation. So during the Xbox 360 gen, I think we just got Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. I can't think of anything else like them two games, but I can't think of anything else Star Wars related. But like
We
we did.
got Lego Complete Saga. Um, Here, let me consult my library. I have Star Wars collections. Let me look over here real quick.
We're not going to
Uh,
count Connect Star Wars because, well, obviously why.
yeah, from the 360 generation, we had Lego Star Wars 3, Lego Star Wars Complete Saga, Force Unleashed 1 and 2, and then that Clone Wars tie-in game. So not very many.
Yeah. So we get less and less basically. But last generation, the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 generation, we got Star Wars Battlefront, which was just multiplayer. We got Star Wars Battlefront 2, which did actually have a single player, but that had probably one of the most disastrous launches of all time. Um, but then we got Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, incredible game. And then we got Star Wars Squadrons, the flight game, which is again phenomenal. If people like space combat, play that game. It's amazing. Um, but anyway, EA had the rights to basically be the only ones that make Star Wars games for what 10 years, and that time was up. So Ubisoft they making an open world action Star Wars game. The Lego Star Wars game that came out has had the biggest, I should say the most amount of sales at launch for a Lego game ever. And it's like as someone that follows the UK chart, I used to post it every single week on Twitter. Lego games are some of the best selling games of the year. Like a lot of people might not realize it, but like those games consistently sell well. I think only Lego Jurassic Park or Lego Jurassic World didn't sell that well in comparison, but like this Star Wars game, Not only is it amazing, like such a fun game, changing the formula to full on third person just works, and it's a huge seller. And we're gonna see a bunch of new games. So anyway, there's a bunch of games coming. We have Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order 2. I don't think it's going to be called that. Uh, Respawn is also making a first-person shooter set in the Star Wars universe, which is pretty interesting considering how good, Titanfall 2 was. We have Star Wars Eclipse by Quantic Dream. Now, apparently that game maybe, I'm not even kidding, 2028. Like,
Yeah, it's gonna be a while.
yeah, so like that cool trailer we saw at the Game Awards, yeah, 2028. People are going to be drawing the pensions by then. Then we have an action adventure game by Skydance New Media. Now, the cool thing about this game is that it's going to be written by Amy Hennig, who did, Uncharted. So maybe this is going to be the closest thing we get to Star Wars 1313 again. I'm just hoping. I will bring that game up at every opportunity and just upset everyone that's a fan of Star Wars because that game had so much promise. Anyway, we have a story-driven open-world action game by Ubisoft Massive and KOTOR by Aspyr Media. And there's also a strategy game being made by EA as well. So that's probably going to be Empire at War, a new one anyway. Anyway, we have a bunch of new Star Wars games coming out. But yet, we're not going to have an E3 this year. EA isn't having a showcase this year. They're completely skipping this year. But May 4th, Star Wars Day is right around the corner. And they normally have an event where they talk about upcoming projects and stuff. They're going to talk about Star Wars Bad Batch Season 2, which they are hard at work on. It kind of makes sense that we're going to see some of these games there. Maybe not, Quantic Dream's game. We'll see that in, 10 years. But yeah, you mentioned this in the past, man. What do you think about all these Star Wars games and the potential of being shown at Star Wars Day?
I'm just absolutely just overjoyed. Like Star Wars means the world to me. It's my favorite science fiction franchise. I love it dearly. I'm so glad we're finally getting good content in it again, that the stories matter. I know like a lot of people were upset when the EU got reset and then they're basically threw out a bunch of stuff and then we're starting over. But now that they've started over and they've kind of gotten their footing, they're making really good games and stories that matter again. And it feels like it harkens back to that era of the OG Xbox, PS2, GameCube, where we had just bangers all the time. We had Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2, the Jedi Academy, Jedi Outcast, Rogue Squadrons, Shadows of the Empire, Empire at War. Just like every year or every few years, there was just an awesome Star Wars game coming out. And then EA got the deal, and this isn't a soapbox, but they handled it pretty bad.
Just a bit.
Just to be honest. They had so many Star Wars games in development at one time, and then for various reasons of their own volition, they one by one were axed. And so, and fun story, but the game that Amy Hennig is making now at Skydance is either the same project she was trying to make at EA before they wonderfully decided to shut it down for some reason, or heavily inspired by it, but she's finally getting her second chance at that, which I'm super excited for. Set in the Rebel Alliance era, and it's gonna be like a bounty hunter, kind of just like a rogue type thing, and it looks awesome. Sounds awesome. And then Quantic Dreams game, whenever it does come out on like what Xbox Series 2, will it be Xbox Series 2 by then?
Probably.
That game should be awesome. It sounds cool. Of course, Quantic Dream has their own issues, which is a whole nother topic. But assuming that game comes out, I'm looking forward to it. Jedi Fallen Order 2, I agree. I think it'll be called something else. It'll have some catchy title, maybe The Dark Times or something like that, because of the era it's in. Um, I'm super stoked for that. And fingers crossed that the other Respawn title is a Republic Commando revival
Yeah.
or Imperial Commando, something like that. One of my favorite Star Wars games ever. Republic Commando is awesome. Speaking of which, slight spoiler, the little tie-in to Bad Batch with one of the characters was like super cool. Um, I just I don't know, man. I'm super excited for more Star Wars games, and then there's even the rumored ones that some Bethesda studios may be working on. Um, whether that comes to see, I guess we'll have to see if the Force is with us on that. But May 4th, definitely keep an eye out, and Star Wars Celebration as well, which is later in May. So if you don't catch all the Star Wars stuff, then don't don't be concerned. There's probably a good chance it's going to be at their next Star Wars event, which is in Star Wars Celebration later in May.
I completely forgot about that. Like, the Star Wars Celebration would make more sense. I think that's where they first showed off Jedi Fallen Order the first time around. So, yeah, it's probably going to be there. It's a good time to be a Star Wars game fan because we're going to start getting them regularly. EA, they had their chance. They cancelled so many Star Wars games. It's kind of heartbreaking. But, like, from the outside looking in, like, it kind of looks like we're going to get back to that original Xbox days, and PS2 days with all those games. Like, probably going to see more Star Wars Squadron games. Speaking of Star Wars Squadrons, Rogue Squadron, Aspire came out and said that, like, if there's enough demand for Star Wars Rogue Squadron, they'd port them to modern platforms. And as someone that played 1 and 2, like, ridiculously, like, I love those games. The second one still looks good, so if they can just bump up the resolution, maybe tidy up some of the textures, like, those games could look pretty good now. But if people want, like, Rogue Squadron or Empire, Shadows of the Empire, like, let Aspire know on Twitter. Be polite, let them know there's demand for it because I want these games. Like a lot of these games already have PC ports, so some of the work's already done there. But yeah, it's a good time to be a Star Wars game fan because we're getting them regularly, at least from this year. And we should be seeing Ubisoft Star Wars game, I believe, this summer. That should be their, one more thing at the event. But it's a good thing to be a Star Wars fan in general. Plus, Bad Batch, that's been awesome. Mandalorian was awesome. Book of Boba Fett, had some really good episodes. So yeah, Star Wars fans, good times. And before we close out the show, I just want to say that I haven't been putting out any individual videos for the past 4 weeks, and I've kept on saying on Twitter, look, this video is coming out this week. You won't want to miss it because I've made some really big videos and I haven't dropped them, and that's because I've had to deal with a lot of copyright issues. And if you've been following the media lately, there's been people abusing the copyright system. Like, you don't want to mess about too much with copyright because even though I follow all the rules, I abide it all. I make sure I'm being creative with the content. I'm not just reposting stuff. Like, copyright's just an issue. And it turns out that a company that was pretending to be Samsung was copyright claiming everything I put out, no matter what it was. And sometimes they were copyright claiming my voice. That's right. This company pretending to be Samsung were copyright claiming my voice. So yeah. But anyway, it's all sorted now. Content resumes from this week. And hopefully no more copyright abuse because, again, this stuff's, really annoying. And you've probably seen in the news, like, the Act Man and, other people have been dealing with copyright behind the scenes by certain people. Like, a lot of people abuse this stuff. So it's like, if you see people not putting out content for a certain amount of time, chances are they're dealing with some BS. But anyway, all that's sorted. Videos return this week. I have videos coming out about Starfield, some other Xbox titles, and some Xbox tech coming out this week, next week, and obviously beyond. And I want to make this announcement here because I've kind of not really talked about it. I'm going to start being on camera for content, hopefully from mid-May. And I'm trying to make a set, do very professional on-camera content. I think people should pay attention to that. But yeah, all that stuff, it's coming. Again, content coming this week. Have you got anything else coming over the next few weeks, Logan?
Um, Not at the moment, but always be on the lookout.
All right, cool. Well, it's been a good show, man. And again, all of our socials, our Twitters, in the links in the description down below. Follow us on Twitter. It's always fun times. And I always reply to everyone, either on the channel or on, Twitter. So follow me on there, follow Logan. And yeah, it's been good, everyone. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell for notifications. It's been an awesome week. The chat's been awesome. There's been no bots this week, which has been very nice. I think that's happened twice now where there's no bots at all. But anyway, it's been awesome. Hope everyone has a good day. We are out. Peace. Oh, that